You're listening to Coffee and Culture on Talk 1260 and 103.7 KTRC, streaming at santafe.com. We're on the radio on Saturday and Sunday at 2 p.m. And my name is Matthew Chase Daniel, and I'm your host every other week. And today I'm sitting at Phil Space in the gallery with artist and musician Hill Snyder, and artist and musician and photographer and gallery director, owner, impresario, James Hart, otherwise known as Jamie Hart. It's a pleasure to be here. There's a show of Hill's drawings that's been here for a bit, and it runs through the end of January. And welcome, you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Matthew.
So we're going to talk about the work that Hills does in general, and the work this specific show, and maybe play some music and all of that. So the show is this extensive series of drawings, all like 9x12 paper, horizontals, line drawings, and they're based on this travels you did, Hills, and you looked through an atlas or a map and picked strange town names. No,
not strange names. There's oddball names all over the place in America, but I prefer to think of it as destinations chosen as if they were written on the planks of a scaffolding. So I went to places that had evocative vibrations about what the national character might possibly be. So the scaffolding is built around this thing that nobody really knows the shape of.
Mm-hmm.
So, I went to Happy, Texas. I went to Nowhere, Oklahoma. I went to Bummerville, California. I went to Eureka, Nevada, Lost Nation, Iowa, places like that. So the names...
They're descriptive.
Yeah, it's not just oddball stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Truth or consequences.
Yeah.
And so you charted a course through these in advance, or you figured it out as you went, or...
Well, the project began at the U-Cross Foundation in Wyoming. So the initial route, I went to Nowhere, Oklahoma first, and then dropped over to Happy, Texas. Then the first location in Wyoming was Lost Springs, and then I arrived at U-Cross, where I did the first 50 drawings. And while I was at U-Cross, using that as a hub, I went to Recluse, Wyoming.
Were you the only
Keystone,
one there?
South Dakota, Opportunity, Montana. And then when I left U-Cross, I made my way out the west side of Wyoming by going through Diamondville. And at that point, I had the rest of it mapped out.
Right. So it started in a small way and then grew.
Well, I didn't bother to map where I was going after U-Cross until it was time to leave U-Cross.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And does the content, so each drawing relates to one of those places, or are there sometimes several drawings from one place?
Yeah, you set a framework or framework. You set a frame that you're going to work within, right? And that frame for me was to photograph every single thing I had the impulse to photograph as I made this my way.
Just in the town, or even between anywhere?
That wall over there, that's all betweens.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't question it or try to figure out why. Every time I felt an impulse to photograph something, I did. And so there's 200 drawings, but there's thousands of photographs.
Right.
And so I would look at the photograph long enough to put a few lines on the page, and up to the point where a space began to exist on the page that didn't exist in the photograph, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it went.
And then from there, you fill out the rest from your imagination, from memory, from other photographs, combination of all of those things.
It's just me and the page. I'm making a drawing. If some kind of free association or memory, or even if someone walks through the room and says, who knows, anything can pour into it.
Right. Yeah, I see in the drawings definite things I recognize. Some, framework of an old building with some nails sticking out of it, a cardboard box, a guy under a truck, different things. But then there's a lot of things that I don't know what they are.
Yeah, well, the guiding principle was, not looking for things that might be so-called monumental in a place, but looking at the peripheries and abandoned things, forgotten things. Those the photographs are nothing in and of themselves, because it's just stuff.
Right.
That kind of proliferates across the country, and some of it was the same stuff everywhere I went, like 10,000 wagon wheels or birdhouses or whatever.
Interesting. And these towns are mostly small towns.
Yeah.
Some empty, some populated a little bit.
I spent over an hour in Lost Springs, Wyoming, and I didn't see a single person.
Or in New Springs, probably.
No, I did not. The main thing I saw in Lost Springs, Wyoming, was some people just in a vacant lot next to a building. Some people had set up a place for a fire and a barbecue or whatever.
Right.
But I don't know when they came there, how often they came there, who they were. I don't know. It's just
right.
A trace of human activity.
Right. And so you see this as a sort of a portrait of America or the American West in a certain way?
Not exactly a portrait, is more like an attempt to find a portrait, maybe.
Mm-hmm. It seems like there's two parts to it. One is the artwork that we all see when we look at the work and hear your descriptions of it, but it seems like a big part of it is also the process and the personal experience and the road and the trip.
It is, and there's a writing component as well. While I was doing this, here we are at Fill Space, this is part 8 of the show, which means there's been 8 different versions of Altered States,
Mm-hmm.
So what tended to happen was, just before a new venue was about to have an opening, a new part of the written narrative would appear on Glass Tire, which is an online magazine based in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe a few months later, the show would travel to another venue, and then another piece of the written narrative.
And is the written narrative something you were making as you were traveling, as you were drawing, both, and also now as the shows happen, and is it an ongoing thing?
Yeah, it's ongoing. Usually the written narrative was written right before it was to be published.
Mm-hmm.
There could have been instances where I wrote some notes that got included. Going to say something?
Yeah. So your first show, you said it was additive. It's an additive process. So how many pieces were in your first show?
The first version of this was at Flight in San Antonio. It was 50 drawings. And because that's a relatively small number of drawings compared to where it went. So in that space, there was a lot of extra room, you might say. So my friend Jeremiah Teich, who's an excellent calligrapher, I asked him to, next to each grouping, like he wrote happy or Lost or Bummerville or whatever it was. I don't think, actually Bummerville wasn't in the picture yet. But so that there was that element that really hasn't been repeated in any of the versions.
We have to go to a break. We'll be right back. My name is Matthew Chase Daniel, and I'm talking with Hill Snyder and Jamie Hart about the show up at PhilSpace through the end of January. You're back listening to Coffee and Culture. We're on Talk 1260 and 103.7 KTRC, streaming at santafe.com, and then podcasts are up. If you look up Coffee and Culture with Matthew Chase Daniel, this and other past podcasts will be online, and you can find that at things like Spotify and Amazon Music and all of those kind of things. Or on my website, which is chasedaniel.com. At PhilSpace on 2nd Street, talking with Hill Snyder and Jamie Hart, and about the show that's up here now, and also about PhilSpace. And a lot of people in town know what PhilSpace is, and a lot of people probably don't. So Jamie, just talk about PhilSpace and the history of it and what you do here. I think it's a little gem of a gallery in Santa Fe, and really a great service to the community, and showing mostly people from around here, and people, as a photographer who works with artists, photographing art for decades now, you know everyone in Santa Fe, and that's not quite.
Not quite, no. Well, thank you, Matthew. Those are very kind words. And PhilSpace was, I began it by making my students at the community college do shows, my photography students, and then it evolved and into a more formal sort of structure, and I just had, since the location of this space which is just a garage space that that happens to have some really nice dimensions. I opened up the bigger space to all different kinds of shows and events. We used to do a lot of music shows, even a couple of raves, even before I knew what a rave was. And
what is a rave?
I don't,
You still don't know.
I still don't know, but I think that we kind of experimented with some things like that with some bands I used to work with, and but I think the main thing about PhilSpace is that I just happened to have this space that was open to be filled, and with whatever, and around the year 2000 it became I called it PhilSpace. That I came up with that name for it, and that's at the time when I started working more with local artists in a more direct manner, and giving people one-person shows, having group shows, and having Tim Jag organize a lot of group shows, and then as it happened, it's just the location where, and the timing around that time, which is 25 years ago now, where there were a lot of artists who I knew, who I worked for, who had been here, maybe they came here in the 60s and 70s and had been working, but they weren't showing anywhere. And one in particular was Jerry West, who, I would have conversations with Jerry, said, Jerry, where are you showing your work? And Jerry would say, well, nowhere. No, I can't get into a gallery.
He came here in the 30s, I think, Jerry.
And I said, well, that's kind of odd. And the way I felt about Jerry was, this is a little sidetrack.
No, please go ahead.
was that here was someone who really, Jerry, his family moved here as, and they participated in sort of the end of like homesteading, that whole phenomenon. And when their family bought the property out on Highway 14, and Jerry seemed to me to be an artist whose artwork kind of grew out of this place, of this land. He's been here so involved, and his paintings were about the people and the landscape that are here, and telling stories about this place. And I felt that the work was very grounded and had a special value to me because of that grounding in this place. And it was at a time, and I'll go back to the year 2000, when a lot of these artists who were older artists who were continuing to make really good work had decided that for one reason or another, for many reasons, that they weren't interested in showing like their artwork on Canyon Road to tourists. And the term coyote art was used a lot back then. And so they weren't really being seen, or they hadn't been seen in 15 years. So I became interested in showing those artists, and that became sort of my main thing for maybe 10 or 15 years.
And the anti-coyote gallery.
Well, but because of the location of the space here, being in Midtown Santa Fe, we're right here. We're only a few blocks from St. Michael's Drive, which is now the cutoff between sort of one town and another town. It's sort of just, I think the location was far enough away from what was going on in the downtown area, where it became a place where people felt comfortable to sort of gather more as a community, and that just happened. I don't know if I planned anything out. In graduate school, I worked in the gallery, and so maybe that stuck with me. I worked in exhibitions, and
so you sell things. It's a commercial gallery, but it's also not driven by commerce because you're not paying exorbitant rents downtown, and
my rent has not changed. My landlord, Bruce Garnand, who was a wonderful person and I learned a lot from, he died at 101 about 3 years ago.
Wow.
And right now I'm 72, and I'm his age when I first started renting from him. And,
so you're going to keep it going for another 30 years at least.
Well, his daughter and her husband have been very nice. They say, just, we're not going to do anything. So, and my rent was raised once, and I think it was raised $50.
Wow.
That was about 25 years ago.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, you make great use of it, and it's a great resource. And whenever I'm here, I feel that sense of community. Sometimes there's tourists who might come in, everyone's welcome, but there's also a community of artists and art collectors and just interesting people and musicians. When you have music in here often during gallery openings and talks and other events. And then the work is, like I said, it's commercial, it's for sale, but it's not driven by that. So it's a great diversity of contemporary work in lots of different styles, and always unexpected, but always really well thought out, well made stuff. So,
well, I think that the thing is that I do my commercial work that pays the rent, And at times I have felt free to just do what I want. And I've had a lot of really bad shows, and then I've had some very, very good shows that I feel that I can either just get really behind, or maybe put myself out there as being someone who could show some stuff that you normally wouldn't be seen in downtown Santa Fe. For the last example was a very difficult show, but one of my favorite shows was being able to show Carl Johansson.
Right.
And I got a lot of different kinds of feedback for that. And but I still feel that my choice to show Carl was something I feel very happy about making that choice, even though it was a little difficult.
Yeah, that work is intense. There's a lot of sexual content. It's very explicit. It's all over the place that way. Some of it people find offensive. Some people find it exciting, well made, and interesting. It's provocative work, which I think is great.
And then there's Hills.
But we got to go to another break. We'll be right back. You're back listening to Coffee and Culture. We're on Talk 1260 and 103.7 KTRC, streaming at santafe.com, podcasts online, Coffee and Culture with Matthew Chase Daniel. Talking with Jamie Hart, Phil Space, which is, Phil Space is at 1410 2nd Street in Santa Fe, Midtown. The show is up till January 32nd, 2025. And the phone number to make an appointment to come is 505-819-1518. Talk to Jamie. Or often when he's here and the gallery's open, there's a sign out front that says open. So if you drive by and you see that, pop in. Jamie's a fun guy to hang out with and talk to, and the work is here to be seen. How many drawings are here?
I don't know, somewhere between 80 and 120. I don't know.
I was going to count, but I have to keep talking. It's great. There's something about the work. They're individual drawings, but they're also like one drawing, one piece. They work with each other well. Do you see it as one drawing or as a bunch of different drawings or both?
Yeah, it totally works as a unified field, which is a great way to experience them. And then you can zoom in.
There's something about them that I was looking as I walked in here before we started recording, and I'd seen them before, but this time it reminded me a bit of Saturday morning cartoons and Dr. Seuss, and I mean that I don't mean that as a critical thing, because some people might find that offensive. I hope you don't. I find that as very engaging, and there's joy coming out of them in that way.
Yeah, well, my habit of getting up in the morning between 5 and 6 started with Saturday morning cartoons, or actually Tarzan. Specifically, when I was a kid, that's every Saturday I was the only person awake at 6 a.m. watching Tarzan. Yeah,
I used to get up early too. If I got up too early, I'd just have the little bars, right. The color bars, or it was a black and white TV at that point for me, so it was just bars or ant races, as we called them, and then the cartoons would come on.
TV used to be from 6 in the morning till midnight, and that was it.
Yeah.
Well, Hills, you probably remember as I do, since we're a little bit older than Matthew.
Yeah, you guys are about the same age, right?
He's a lot older than I am.
He was born in 1950, and you were born when?
52.
Oh yeah, he's much older.
Hills, I bet you remember the little songs on the black and white TV with the bouncing ball.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Uh-huh.
That's one of my favorite things ever in my
The ball
memory as a
bouncing
child.
so you could sing along and read along. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I sent out the invitation for people to participate in the Q&A that was just published on the Art Report today, a week ago. And I think it was Marcia Butler that got the invitation, and she said, "Yeah, sure, I'll be happy to follow the bouncing ball."
Marcia's.
I think it was Marcia that said that.
Yeah, she's a contemporary of ours, definitely. Yeah. But there's something else about Hills's work. If I can, I'll just say something
please.
about
Yeah.
Hills and my this, for me, like a lot of the time in showing people's work and is about relationships and getting to know people, getting to know their work. For me, I mean, I knew something about Altered States, and I knew something about Hills before we had this show, but not until Hills got up here, started hanging the show, and then I really sort of started looking. And I just want to say that this is a case of a show that I feel really strongly. I have really strong feelings about it, about how proud I am and how lucky I am to have this show. And it's not the kind of work that, like a big painting show or something that dazzles you and all this. It's something that engages and it works on so many different levels, and it has for me. And so I really, I really have had a good time getting to know Hills and know the work better.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I feel about the work is that it's got its feet on the ground, and it's based on something that just by his process of the way he went around and stuff like that, it comes from the ground, and it's really about this place, the American West, and that is something that I wonder about all the time, because I'm a Westerner, but I'm from Portland, and the Southwest is a lot different than where my family came from, and here we have the issues we have here about how this basically Europeans have come into this land here, and what that relationship is between us, like me now. I mean, why am I sitting here in this chair in Santa Fe, New Mexico, having come from a completely different place? And, what's going on here? Well, I think that Hills's work, it begs a lot of questions about something that's very real, that we all experience here in the Rocky Mountain West.
Yeah.
And why we're here, and how we behave, how we react to the environment in the present time. What do we think of all of this, So I really, I find this work so engaging, and so I wish, call me and come see the work, because I think it needs to be seen.
Yeah. Call Jamie Hart, 505-819-1518. Stop by 1410 2nd Street. Altered States, Part 8,
Yeah.
Hills Snyder. So Hills also runs his own art gallery called Kind of a Small Array in Magdalena, New Mexico, which is, if you don't know where that is, we forgive you because it's a small place. Just west of Socorro, up in the mountains, old railhead, trailhead mining town.
Last cattle drive in 1969.
Driving cattle to the rail to ship cattle back to St. Louis or Colorado or somewhere.
A Minehead Divine designed by Eiffel.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful town. I was down there with Axel. Jerry and I went down there and made photographs as part of our E Pluribus Unum project a few months ago. And Hills was a great host, and we set up at his gallery one evening and took a lot of great photos, a lot of artists and friendly people down there. It's a great place. I shouldn't say that on the radio because they don't need more people to show off, right? It's the hidden gem. And Jamie, you've spent time down there too and played music. And the two of you, I'm not sure when this show we're recording is going to air. I think it'll be past then. But the two of you are going to be playing music together, swapping songs there on December 21st.
Yep, at 2:19 p.m., 12 hours before the solstice.
Solstice at 2:19 a.m. on the 22nd.
Yeah.
All right, 12 hours before solstice. We got to go to our last break, and then we'll be back. You're back listening to Coffee and Culture. My name's Matthew Chase Daniel. I'm here at Phil Space with Hill Snyder and Jamie Hart. In addition to the visual art that these guys are involved in, they're both musicians, longtime musicians, play guitar, sing. I was reading something, Hills, that you were describing the line drawing of these drawings similar to a needle on a record and moving through those lines. And there's something sort of about the road and as a kid, I used to lie in the back of the car and look out the window as my parents were driving and look up at the power lines moving up and down through the windows. And I love that. And so I think there's some sort of relationship between music and drawing.
Yeah,
So
I think I was going for an analogy based on field recording.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So both of these guys are going to play some music. So we're starting with Hills.
Okay.
Let's go. Yeah.
This is a song called Chess Man. You keep trying to make a chess man out of me. You keep trying to make a chess man out of me. You pick me up and you put me back down on the square where you think I ought to be. You keep trying to make a chess man out of me. You keep trying to make a chess man out of me. Don't matter if I'm black or white. You rip my rook and you knock my knight. You keep
keep trying to make a chess man out of me. You keep trying to make a chess man out of me. You pick me up and you put me back down on the square where you think I ought to be. You keep trying to make a chess man out of me. You keep trying to make a chess man out of me. Don't matter if I'm queen or king. You decide if I sink or sing. You keep trying to make a chess man out of me. You keep trying to make a chess man out of me. Pick me up and you put me back down on the square where you think I ought to stay. Don't matter what square I'm on. You bitch my bishop and you punk my pawn.
So his band is called Wolverton, and you can listen to more of that at wolverton@bandcamp.com. And now Jamie's going to play us something.
Yeah. And I just do want to say that I appreciate, another thing I appreciate so much about Hills is he's a songwriter, and he does a lot of writing like he draws, and I find that really amazing. In my case, I'm not so much of a songwriter, but I have some songs, and this is one song that came to me. I don't know how, but it did. I don't think
That's called writing.
On the banks of the Rio Grande, roll into the sea. There's a place that we all know. Nothing seems to bother me. We're rolling on the river, rolling to the sea, rolling to where the leaves fall on me. On the banks of the Rio Grande, my baby dreams her dreams, no more to cry, just to watch the sky moving above the willow trees. We're rolling on the river, rolling to the sea, rolling to where the leaves fall on me. All the the ships that we make by hand, and we release. Take a course far from land, remembering our home in the trees. We're rolling on the river, rolling to the sea, rolling to where the leaves fall on me. On the banks of the Rio Grande, rolled into the sea, there's a place that we all know. Nothing seems to bother me. We're rolling on the river, we're rolling to the sea, rolling to where the leaves fall on me.
Cottonwoods, presumably.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. What a treat to be here and have this little intimate musical experience. I wish I was going to be around Magdalena for your show, but I'm going to be out of town. Thank you so much for spending the time. Check out Hills' music, Wolverton at bandcamp.com. Check out Hills' show at Philspace, 1410 2nd Street. Call Jamie to set up a time, 505-819-1518, or stop by, and if the gallery open sign is out there, he's in here. Go ahead.
And long live the Willies and the Golden Spur.
Yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, we're out of time. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you.